Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. DJ here. This is my first ever upload and I'm really excited. I played a variety of gacha games over the past few years and often I've done extremely well, even as a pure free-to-play player. I've been loving Honkai Star Rail and I noticed that there haven't really been any free-to-play guides for Memory of Chaos, and having just beaten it fully 30 out of 30 stars myself, I thought I'd actually go ahead and make one. This is going to be an extremely in-depth review and a long video. I'm going to go through all my characters, builds, synergies, relics, relic sharing, team setup, boss mechanics, and pretty much everything you will need to know to progress as far as you can as a free-to-play player. I'll also cover the latter floors in detail, as I believe it's clearly the most challenging content and most likely the part where most free-to-play players are stuck on. Again, this is my first video and I don't really have any editing skills, so please go easy on me guys. Without further ado, let's start. So, Memory of Chaos team structure. It requires 2 teams of 4, which is a total of 8 characters. Now, you would actually want about 9 or 10 characters on your team to add flexibility depending on the stages, the type of weaknesses of the enemies that you'll want to mix and match in and out. Now, you only really want 2 DPS in total, and you'll want to max them out first. The reason I say this is because DPS characters require heavy investment as they're your primary damage dealer and what will carry you through the clears and cycles. And investing in more than 2 DPS characters will eat up an extreme amount of your resources, which is quite limited when you just start the game. So I would really recommend only going with 2 DPS characters and really have a plan for which 2 that you really want to raise going forward. Hardest part about Memory of Chaos is definitely surviving. And especially without Gepard, Bailu, or Luocha, who can pretty much solo sustain your team, it is actually very hard to survive. But I've noticed it's actually possible. Now, as a free-to-play player, Natasha is 100% your best friend. You'll definitely want to have her built. You'll never regret building Natasha ever, that I can guarantee. Just build her ASAP. March 7 and Fire MC are also really strong units. I personally built both, as you can see, because I don't have a secondary healer. I'm also lacking Gepard. Ultimately, I do think you'll need at least 3 defensive units, which is a mix of tanks and healers. The rest of your team will then be filled with supporting characters, ones that can buff your team or debuff the enemy team, and a bunch of good units, for example, are Bronya, Asta, Pella, Yukong, and of course, my favorite waifu, Ting Yun. She's the only support I have at level 80. It was not really necessary, I just did it because she's my waifu and I gotta do what I gotta do. Anyways, rule of thumb, max your DPS character levels, their light cones and traces first. Then your supports traces that buff or debuff the enemy team or your own team, and then focus on your defensive units and healers last. The reason it's important to level your DPS character levels and light cone is because these are base stats. And the relic stats come from amplifying your base stats. So it's important to have your base stats maxed out. So it gives better exponential value towards your relics as well. Now, speaking of relics, I believe the best time to farm relics, hardcore at least, is Trailblazer level 60, where you're guaranteed 2 gold drops. I'm aware that Trailblazer 65, you're also guaranteed 2 gold drops, and you have a chance to get 3, but I think the chance is very slim, and the amount of time it takes from 60 to 65 is quite a lot, and if you're really avoiding farming relics, then you're not really going to make much progression especially in Memory of Chaos. So I do recommend just start farming hardcore relics around TL60. But also at Trailblazer level 50 or so, I think you do want to farm just primary main stats for your 2 DPS characters. And you should be looking for a gold relic set and trying to +9, ideally +12 them. And just remember to look for main stats. You don't need this perfect substats at TL50. You know, you'll replace these later on once you farm. For supports, don't really farm stats for them unless you're really desperate. What I do is I just do the weekly Echoes of War, and the Musketeer drops, I just slap on all my supports. If it drops the Thieves, I slap it on Asta. You know, if I get an attack piece, throw that to Ting Yun. If I get HP or defense, I just slap that on my Asta or Pella. I think both of them don't really need you know, main stats. They pretty much just need survivability, and their real strength comes into play with their ultimates. Asta, for example, her ult, Pella, her ult, defense threat. So, you know, the stats aren't too important for most supports besides Bronya. So, you know, it makes building them quite easy, actually. Pretty much any piece can be used for the most part. And you'll definitely want, you know, speed boots on all your supports, as speed is probably the most important stat when it comes to turn-based gacha games, and I'll get into that more later on as well. Now with the basics kind of out of the way, you know, let's dive into the real sauce and check out my team and their build. Now we get on to my team building and character showcase. So just to speed things up here, I'm just going to show the main stats, you know, more stats, scroll it down, take a look at Lycone traces, relics, Eidolons, E3. Moving on, Zila. Main stats here. Crit ratio is definitely scuffed, but I'll fix that later. Looking for a crit damage chest. Lycone here. Traces. Relics 4-piece Quantum, 2-piece Space Ceiling. E0. Bronya. Built her pretty much like a tank. 134 speed, because in Memory of Chaos, speed breakpoints are 121 and 134. Meaning you should aim for 121 or to get an extra turn once few cycles, and if you can do 134, then even better. But somewhere like 129, 130 wouldn't really add too much value. You are faster, but you're not really getting meaningful turns and rotation out of it, so aim for either 121 or 134. In my case, Bronya is 134. Show some stats. Lycone from the Forgotten Hall shop. Traces. Relics. ER rope. This is really the important part. E0. Natasha, Slapped a bunch of HP on her. She's a little slow, but sometimes I swap out relics with some other characters, which I'll touch on in more detail in the actual floors. Lycone, S2, Traces, Relics, HP. She's on this because I have a +3 thing that would give the 4-piece set, but the 4-piece set for the Wandering Cloud is really useless. It's just 1 skill point for the whole battle. And because my Zila got upgraded, I might as well use this +12 piece, the HP substats, and just the stats is way more useful than 1 skill point. Healing, HP, HP, HP. E6, I got a bunch of copies of her from pulling for the Zila banner, and it was great. I'm at 38.8% lightning damage because I do not have him on the lightning set. I have not been able to farm that successfully. Signature Lycone, max traces, Wild Wheat and Salcedo. Easier. Fire MC, 122 speed, just over the 121 threshold, very bulky. Lycone S5, really good 4-star Lycone, probably the best 4-star Lycone for preservation in my opinion, because it reduces damage reduction for your whole team, and it's for the entire battle. Traces, talent and alt, mostly talent, alt is more of a luxury. Relics, and E6, you can get this by completing the story update that just happened in 1.2, and it's a very big thing because it essentially gives the Fire MC 30% more defense by stacking it, and 30% defense is significant, especially for the high base defense that character has, and pretty much scales off defense for everything. March 7, speed, defense. Also day 1 of a new life, S3. If you're wondering why I have so many copies of this Lycone, is because I pulled a bunch for Jing Yuan's signature Lycone, and I converted all of my store, what do you call it? Not dust, but the store currency to convert into Starvale passes to pull for the Lycone. I ended up getting a whole bunch of these while going for Jing Yuan's signature. Max, prioritize just her shield. HP, attack. Attack hit rate, body. This is important because her alt stun, her alt freeze is very, very important. If you time it right, it really helps you in the later stages, especially floor 9 and 10 with the automation guy. Defense, HP. This should be defense. I just don't have any defense spears. Defense. E3. Pella. 135 speed. 65.5% effective rate. I just forgot March. Take a quick look at the stats, 66% effective rate. Lyco. The free one, S5 of course, best one by far. Talent gives energy, so level this. Alt reduces enemies' defense by more, so yeah, definitely level those. Relics, while we can just 1 Mac for more energy regen. Just pretty much an alt bot. Just HP main stat on pretty much everything for survivability. She doesn't really need damage, and she doesn't really do too much damage, to be honest. Multipliers are pretty bad. She's just there for defense red. And E4. And finally Asta, the last character I have built on my team. At 135 speed as well. Very bulky HP and defense. That's all I need her for. Light cone. S2 memories of the past, gives some break effect and energy. Talent, really good, especially for starting off the fights with her technique. You can pretty much get 3 or 5 stacks, giving a big attack boost. Alt speed is good, of course. Thieves break set. HP attack, HP speed, just defense for the fleet bonus and defense for some bulkiness. E2 as well, and very quickly here we can see her stats, 102 break effect, so she does do pretty decent damage for break. And yeah, that'll be it for my character showcase, and now I'll be moving forward with actually telling you guys which characters I picked for the first 5 floors, and then floor 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'll go into a little bit more explanation on why I picked the characters for each side and some of the techniques, which I'm sure everybody has been waiting for. So here it is finally, the first 5 floors of Memory of Chaos. I'll go through relatively quickly, but just describe a little bit. It's pretty much a breeze as long as you have your characters leveled, and we'll go through them. So stage 1. We look here, we always want to check out the enemies and what they're weak to. For example here, they're weak to Quantum, so I put Zila first half for sure. A typical team will look something like this. Zila, Bronya, these two go together perfectly. I put Tingyun, Jingyuan. These two go well perfectly. So most of my teams, 90% of my teams pretty much look exactly like this. The reason I put Zila in front is because it's the least to be targeted, and this Memory of Chaos cycle buff, as we can see, allies whose current HP percentage greater than 80% increase their attack by 50% for 1 turn. So basically you want your DPS character to have the most amount of health and above 80%, so they're getting a bonus. The reason putting her at the edge helps the most is because some enemies do AoE damage. For example, they might do a hit on Bronya and then hit somebody on her left and hit somebody on her right. In this case, it would hit her anyways. But if, let's say, the enemy were to hit the 3rd slot, then it would hit Bronya and the 4th slot, which avoids Zila. The reason my Tingyun is here as opposed to Jingyuan on the second half is because Tingyun is very, very squishy, so I'm kind of afraid she gets one-shot or dies, so that's typically how my setup goes. And then basically what happens is my Zila is very strong, especially paired with Bronya, so on my stronger team, I add the Fire MC. But I want the Fire MC on the stronger team because my Natasha is stronger than Fire MC for solo sustain. So I put Natasha on my weaker team. And at least for the first 5 stages, I pretty much put just Fire MC on one side and Natasha on the other side. I don't really need, preservation plus a healer for the first 5 stages. If you do, you're welcome to, put March 7 or somebody else who can take that slot, and then put Fire MC with Natasha on the same team. It will slow down your cycles, which may impact you for getting the perfect clear. So it would look something like, pretty much my team would look very similar to, throw in like an Asta here, Fire MC, and then throw in Pella into Natasha. And I would just run a team like this. Stage 2, we see, okay, they're both weak to lightning. First half, got it. Second half, you got that. Ice resist, control effect resistance. So you don't want to put, you don't want to take your ice units on the second half, essentially. What I like to do is, because I see fire weakness, I want to pair my fire units up top. So what I run here is something like Zila, Bronya, Asta, Fire MC, bottom, Ting Yun, and Pella Natasha. And as you can see, I only have 9 units in total. So I'm pretty much just running the same 8 for now, because I'm not planning to double up on preservation. So it is just kind of swapping the same units around. Stage 3. This stage, ice resist, frozen resist. You really don't want to take ice units on first half, and you see they're weak to fire. So as usual, we're going to do the same thing. Zele, Bronya, Asta, Fire MC. Bottom. This guy is actually really important for this Memory of Chaos. He shows up very often, Disciples of Sanctus Medicus. This guy is resistant to lightning, so you're not supposed to put a lightning unit. I unfortunately only have Jing Yuan, so I have to brute force with him regardless. And there's kind of 2 ways to deal with this guy, because what he does is he has an effect that pretty much drain tanks, as if he can lifesteal off you. So either you need to use Pella's skill, which removes the buff and remove that off him, or you just need to use some sort of AoE and AoE his ads to remove his healing. So either one would kind of work here. I would just run this team as usual, and it gets the job done. Stage 4. We see quantum weakness and lightning resist Kafka here. I'd run the same thing. Now here, the Kafka second stage is a little bit difficult actually. So what you could do here is run March 7 to kind of solo tank the first half. And second half, you could run Fire MC and Natasha, just because Kafka is actually quite strong here, and first half is significantly easier than second, especially because Zila matches the enemy weakness here, so the first half clear should go relatively smoothly. And finally, stage 5 here. The enemies, yep, they're weak to ice, they're weak to quantum, so definitely Zila first half. Check here. See, neither side is weak to fire, and it's fire resist on the first half. But the way I view it is, if you need to take Asta, she's generally better in a team comp with Jing Yuan, because it kind of increases his Lightning Lord. But because they're both weak to ice, I think this opens up the possibility to solo tank with ice up top. But you could just run, to be safe, something like a Pella and even Natasha up top, and then the bottom half, you could run something like Asta and March. You could replace Asta with Fire MC if you really need tank. But generally, Natasha is quite strong as a solo. And in this situation, since I'm not using Asta on a team, for example, I could take off Asta's relics, like her speed boot relic, and put it on Natasha to speed her up so she could, heal more the team. That's a nice kind of min-maxing where you just share relics in between your teams based on who you're taking. Alrighty, on to floor 6 here. So floor 6 pretty much, this is like the first kind of gate check floor where, it's level 80s. It's pretty strong. Second half is a lot scarier than the first half. But luckily with this type of setup, the first half is basically perfect for Jingyuan. You got two of these guys, both weak to lightning, so definitely first half we would be putting something like Tingyun, Jingyuan, weak to ice, Pella, and we would throw something like Natasha here. We could try soloing with Fire MC or March 7 is a good choice because of the ice weakness. Second half, there's two ways to play against this deer. So what it does is there's two break bars on it, so you have to kind of kill it twice, and it summons a bunch of plants, and these plants, they all do their own thing. But basically, if you don't kill the plants in about 2 cycles, the deer will absorb all the plants and do this big AoE attack, but then all the plants will kind of die. The way I recommend doing this floor is pretty much just bomb rushing the deer. You just ignore the plants and pretty much just go all in. And what you want to do essentially in that strategy is definitely have quantum weakness, Zele, Bronya. You got a couple options. How to run Fire MC and Natasha. If you can't solo with March 7 up top, you could try putting Fire MC instead, but given that it is ice weakness, I do think it's fine. You can always play it pretty slow, like when you're solo tanking with March 7, you can always kind of save some of your skill points from more skill point hungries like Jingyuan. Just auto maybe a turn or two and get March 7's shield to proc on everyone on your team, and it lasts 4 turns if you have the traces. And then once everyone's kind of shielded up, then feel free to kind of use your skill points accordingly. Second half, what I would do is I would rush the deer, and just about when the deer is going to kind of absorb the plants and do this AoE attack, that's right before that you want to time your Fire MC skill to reduce the AoE damage, heal it back over Natasha, and then it's really, really easy. This floor is pretty much just the damage check floor in my opinion. As long as you have the damage DPS characters, you should be fine here. Stage 7. First half is definitely made for Zila as usual. Just run something similar as the rest. There's Fire weakness second half, so I think what we want to do here is actually we can look forward to running something like an Asta with not Fire MC and Natasha here. And on the second floor, we could actually look to run either this double tank setup, or if we're strong enough and we just need to clear cycles, we can run Pella instead of March 7. And this, they're both weak to lightning. It's AoE. And Jing Yuan works really well against this fat automation grizzly. He's like the round, robot that summons these small exploding robots. And Jing Yuan like literally destroys these over and over. It's basically kind of designed for him to breeze through. Now, since we are stage 7, kind of forgot to talk there. Since we are stage 7 and we are getting later stages, these objectives become a lot more difficult. So, not many of you know this, but you don't actually need to clear all 3 objectives at the same time to get 3 stars. So what I mean is, you can do a run, and let's say you cleared it within 16 cycles, and you had no down characters. But you're missing in clearing it in 24 cycles with perhaps, like a double tank team on the bottom. No one died, but you were a bit slow. Okay, so you have 2 stars. Well, now actually, let's say you remove March 7 and put Pella here to speed up the clear because she can shred defense. And now, even if you clear it, and let's say some of your characters die, but you're able to clear it under 24 cycles left, you'll get this 3rd star. And overall, you'll still get 3 stars. So you don't actually need 3 stars simultaneously. This is, to help, adjust teams if your team, can't kind of just 3-star in a 1 clear. And that's very helpful for some of the later floors, which you may or may not need. I personally didn't need to, but it's very helpful nonetheless. Stage 8. This is the part that it gets, this is one of the hardest floors for me personally because I'm running, Zila and Jing Yuan, and this is pretty much got no weaknesses and even lightning resist. And this, it's kind of weak to quantum here, kind of weak to lightning here. So it's pretty awkward for me here. I think the play is definitely to put Zila on first half here, and you want to put Bronya. But the problem is this guy, he's lightning resist, so you don't want to put Jing anywhere. But this guy has, that draining effect, where he has the ability to kind of just keep life stealing unless you kill his ads or debuff. And because Zila is not the greatest at killing those ads, because those ads have a revive buff themselves that gets super annoying. You pretty much are forced, if you're going to run this, to run Pella 3rd, and you just use Pella's skill to debuff him. You can ignore his ads and just kind of rush him. If you feel like the ads are annoying, you can kill the ads, but it might slow down your cycles. But once again, you can take it slow and clear with no down characters. Then you can, take it more aggressive and try to clear for the cycles, as I said kind of earlier. And then with this team, you definitely need to run the stronger defense unit, which would be Natasha in my case, for sure here. And second half, we would run something like this with Fire MC here. And it's because, they're weak to fire, and, Asta's here, speed Jing Yuan. And, if there's pieces on March that are stronger than pieces on Fire MC, since you're not using March, you could always go and, swap over some of March Relics to Fire MC just to make this run a little bit easier. I'll do an example of that on floor 9, because floor 9 was one that I had a lot of difficulty with. So floor 9, I actually think floor 9 was the most difficult stage for me personally, just because this first half was extremely difficult to deal with, let alone the second half with Cocolia, which she is literally Fizz resist, Ice resist, Wind resist, Frozen resist, Crowd control resist, and she moves so fast. She has that AoE Ice Storm thing that just nukes your team. So how did I do this stage? Well, pretty much I tested a whole bunch And the conclusion that I ended up running with, and the team that helped me clear 3 stars, was actually running Pella, Jingyuan, March 7, and Natasha. This is one of the only times that I've paired March 7 with Natasha the healer in the later stage, because generally March 7 is way better than Fire MC for solo tanking, because her shields are very big. You can get more than 2000 HP shields per character that lasts up to 4 turns, so you can kind of just put them one by one on your characters. Whereas Fire MC has like an AoE shield, but it's very small, like maybe 300 or 400. So characters will take a lot of pain. But I'll explain the thought process behind it, and it's a very specific kind of technique that I do to kind of deal with floor 9. So second half, what I run here is actually I run Tingyun, Zila, Asta, and Fire MC. So I don't actually run Bronya, because the way I experimented for floor 9, Bronya is very skill point hungry, because she needs to E a lot, and her alt CD, like her energy cost on alt, is actually quite high, and I just couldn't really get her put into good use on either side of the teams, because I just need Pella for sure to stop this guy from perma-drain tanking. And then I tried running it with only Natasha, but she just couldn't heal enough once it got to the stage 3 with 2 of these Stormbringers. She just couldn't heal enough or fast enough to keep up. So bringing March 7, she also couldn't really solo tank very well, although I haven't tried it with her new build, so maybe she could solo tank it. So I ended up bringing a tank and Natasha, and this top half clear is very, very slow. I probably spent 12 or 14 cycles on the first half clear, because it's essentially just Jingyuan, and he doesn't even have Tingyun to buff his damage. It just has some Pella defense shred. And the second half is kind of the half where you go all in. You're running solo Fire MC, which is very kind of risky in the later floors, but I kind of made it work. And Tingyun with Zila, even though she's running Planetary Rendezvous and it has no effect on Zila, if I had like a Dance 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 or something, I would use it on her instead, just for this specific case, because obviously Zila isn't going to benefit from the lightning damage from that planetary talent passive. So how it works here is, on the first wave that spawns on the second half, you have this imaginary Weaver. This is extremely fast. This unit is extremely fast. I think you need like 156 speed or higher to kind of beat it, which is very near impossible. And it goes first, and it does an AoE cleave damage to 3 of your units. It chunks quite a bit, and immediately you get hit by that, you basically lose the Memory of Chaos buff, and it slows down your clear, and you're kind of screwed. So the way I got around that was kind of my inspiration for this team comp. So what I do is, when I enter the battle to second stage, you guys will know this when you go second stage floor 9. Techniques, I double technique Tingyun, I technique Fire MC, I go into battle with Asta technique using her E, and I immediately spam Tingyun's ultimate. The moment I get in battle, I spam her ultimate, because she needs to go before that cleave enemy. And that cleave enemy will take their turn first if you don't spam her ult. So make sure you spam the ult, and then I use Tingyun's ultimate on Asta. And after I use it on Asta, Asta immediately gets her ultimate available, and you need to basically spam Ting Yun ult into Asta ult. And then when you spam Asta ult, it cycles your entire team, pushes them forward to actually take turns before this guy. And then you can kind of just, either kill them off the Zila or use your Fire MC E taunt. And basically what happens is you end up clearing the first wave and the second wave, which is, weak to all your elements, and you're pretty much full HP on your team, keeping all of these buffs. And then by the time you get to the Cocolia stage, you want to focus this guy first on the right, and then focus Cocolia. But basically, you just, use your Fire MC taunts, use your Asta E's to break, and then you auto attack with Ting Yun to get back skill points, and then you skill point Zila Cocolia, and the battle is relatively easy from there. And another thing I want to showcase is, because I'm not using Bronya on this current team, and I've mentioned previously that you can share relics, I'm actually going to go and show you an example of what I would do for stage 9, specifically for this team. So let's head out, let's go here. So you can see my Bronya, this is her current build. And I know that I'm not going to be using her for floor 9. So some of her relics I can put into other people. So for example, on floor 9, I will be running Asta. So some of the relics, for example, like this defense rope, it's really important to cycle her ult. So I'm just going to take this energy regen rope from Bronya and switch it onto Asta. And this defense sphere, that's useless. I'm just also going to rip this from Bronya as well to give my Asta a little bit more survivability. Now, additionally, Bronya has, level 13 speed boots. So I can use this on somebody as well. So for example, I could put these boots on a character like Natasha to speed up her healing for the first half. I can put this speed boot on Ting Yun to speed up Ting Yun for the second half. So yeah, let's do that. So let's take Ting Yun and pretty much just take Bronya's boots, something like this. And then we can go to Natasha, and instead of these HP boots, we can give her Bronya's new boots with the speed. So now, our Natasha is 116 speed, which is much improved. Our Ting Yun is 149 speed, which is much improved. And at the same time, our Asta is even more speed, and our Asta now has, energy recharge. And this helps both teams on both sides significantly. And all I really did was just kind of, take apart Bronya's relics a little bit. I didn't have to, refarm new relics or anything. And then after I beat stage 9, don't forget, you re-put your relics back into the proper places after, and readjust if you have to for another stage. Now finally we're on stage 10. So for stage 10 I did something very unique because of this gatekeeper. This gatekeeper is very unique in the fact that after a certain amount of turns, or if you use your skills or ultimate on him, he'll reach something called a sanction mode. And it takes kind of 3 actions for him to reach 100% sanction mode, in which his weaknesses will disappear and he'll summon some of these ants. And once he's in sanction mode, he'll have these 2 attacks where basically he autos you the first attack, and the second attack does single target extreme damage and also imprisons you. And the key to countering this is using March 7. So March 7 is an absolute godsend for stage 10, and I don't believe any other 4-star could solo tank the first half. So with that being said, this is my team setup. I run Ting Yun, Jing Yuan, Bronya, and March 7 on the first hand. So the reason being this. Second half, Kafka does a lot of damage. And by I mean a lot of damage, I mean she does a lot of damage. And there is absolutely no way, with at least my units, without a Gepard or a Bailu or Luocha, that you can solo tank the second half. So I know I need Fire MC and Natasha in the second half. Run Zila, Pella, Fire MC, and Natasha. The reason I need Pella second half is because you have this annoying guy who shows up once again. So you need to use Pella to stop him from perma-drain tanking, as usual. And then Fire MC Natasha just to help you survive, and Zila to do the rest of the damage. Now back to this Gatekeeper. So how you want to do this map is, essentially you want to clear and then you want to auto attack the Gatekeeper until he hits Sanction Mode himself. And once he hits Sanction Mode, you want to make sure you have March 7's ultimate ability available. Now, when it's available, she can freeze. Now, the key thing is you don't want to freeze this guy before Sanction Mode, unless you're confident that March 7's ult will be back after he's in Sanction Mode. And then you don't want to just freeze him immediately after Sanction Mode as well. So what you guys will notice is, once you head into battle, and once he uses the first part of his two-part attack in Sanction Mode, the first auto, and the second part is the part where he would imprison you with the big single target damage. Right after he uses that first part, that's when you want to hit March 7's ult and freeze him right there. If you freeze him right there, pretty much what will happen is not only he'll be frozen and lose a turn, but once he unfreezes, he completely loses Sanction Mode, which means he gets a reset back to non-sanction mode. He doesn't do those too heavy auto attacks that imprison your team and deal a lot of damage, and it buys you a significant amount of time, which you can use to apply March 7 shields up over and over. And then on stage 3 you do the same thing, you save March 7 ult for the Gatekeeper once again, and that is the strategy to beating it. Second half, Kafka, third stage is really difficult. She does a lot of damage, as I already mentioned. What you want to do there is build a lot of effect resist on your healer, Natasha. So hopefully she doesn't get dominated by Kafka. But if she does, you're going to be using your Fire MC taunt ability. Pretty much every single turn is available. You need to prioritize your Fire Trailblazer taunt just to reduce the amount of damage your team takes. Otherwise, it's quite likely you'll die. So if you need to auto attack on Zele once a while, if you need to auto attack on Pella once a while, do what you need to do to keep your uptime on Fire MC taunt ability. If Fire MC gets dominated by Kafka, use Natasha to cleanse, etc. You can play it slow and eventually you'll clear it. And if you have difficulty with the cycles, most likely you just need higher damage. But once again, you can kind of clear it without anyone down, and then maybe you can play more risky and test your RNG later. This floor 10 setup, this did take me about 3 to 4 runs before I successfully 3-star cleared it. But just to let you guys know, with my current team and the relics I've shown you guys earlier, I did clear this, and my best clear cycle was with 24 cycles left. So there is quite a bit of a buffer room. Just to share, my floor 9 clear cycle, my best one was 23 cycles left. So there's a little bit of room, but both of them are relatively hard. Timing the Gatekeeper with March 7 ult is very important. If you let him get to sanction mode, he'll probably ruin your clear. That's why I emphasize having effect hit chest on March 7, and If it fails and you don't hit the freeze on him, you can always kind of restart. It is the first half, so it's much more forgiving than if it was on the second half, so you don't have to restart too much. And ultimately, I think that's it. That's a wrap. If you somehow stuck here all the way till the end, I really don't know how you did it, because when I was recording this myself, I was thinking this is way too long and it's like I'm making a movie, but I can't really go back anymore, so it is what it is. I just info dumped the whole thing. Anyways, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Positive, negative, constructive feedback, anything is all good. I hope this video helped you in some way, whether it's about learning about gameplay mechanics or just thought process behind team building. I really had fun making the video and sharing my thoughts. Cheers, guys.